protests against the Vietnam War. So the students are going to be looking into maybe newspaper articles or pictures or political cartoons in that way. And then at the end of the lesson, it's going to be a one-day lesson, so it's going to kind of tie in what they got from the newspaper article or what they got from these pictures and kind of bring it together on how this coincides with this and how they went off of each other. So that's mainly background. All right. First off, I need you guys to get into groups of two, where I'm going to give you a newspaper article. I want you to read over it, talk about it amongst yourselves. I'll be around, kind of asking you questions, seeing what's going on. I'm going to write some questions on the board. Don't worry about that right now.
Along with your name.
Along with my name, yes. I'm going to write some questions on the board. Don't worry about those right now. After we talk about it, talk about it in your groups, we'll go over it together as a class so we get a better understanding. And talk about it, discuss it between you and your partner, kind of what's going on, what you've noticed as a trend in this document. Be around to kind of see what's going on. Like I said, don't worry about the questions right now. Just kind of get a general background on this. So maybe that had something, maybe it was a requirement that they had for the class. What do you guys come up with? What can you decipher from this document?
There's been some school interruptions.
School interruptions, how's that make you guys feel? I mean, as students, what would you feel like if you were there? Would you be, all right, woohoo, no more class? Or what do you think the mood on the campus would be?
I think you get a kind of mob mentality going. I mean, you got the idea that there's enough numbers slipping away at one point that people just start canceling class altogether. So, you know, it's not so much about what the individuals want, but you get this slippery slope of like, there's enough people, so yeah, we're all in, you know. So.
Good, good, all right.
And then that happened up there. I don't know if you're using.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
right, does everybody think they got a pretty good general understanding what this document is? Can we agree on that? Yeah. Okay, let's bring it back together, kind of go over some questions together, bring it into tie into everything. If you guys want, you can write this down, you don't need to, we're just going to bring it back in together at the end of the lesson. So what else is going on at the time this document was written? So first off, we need to know when the document was written. Can anybody tell me that? I heard 1968. Good. So, does anybody know? Well, you should know. When was the Vietnam War going on? This is right in the heart of it, right? So, was this more the beginning, the middle, the end of the war? What was going on? More the middle of the war, right? So, what can you decipher from this? You know, people were, at the beginning of the war, they were really gung-ho, all right, America, let's go and kick some butt in Vietnam, right? As the death total began to amount, what happened on the home front? What can we see coming out just from this document alone?
People kind of rallying against them.
Good. Protest, right? A lot of people ganging up together to try and say, hey, we need to stop this, we need to get out of there. Something we need to just be done with. If it's going bad, it's going to keep going bad. What was different at the time of this document than what is right now? Say, the Iraq War. What kind of things would you see different to the American public? What about attitudes? You see any difference in attitudes? Or college campuses? Did you see college campuses protesting the Iraq War?
They weren't cutting classes.
Weren't cutting classes. Good. What else can you say about that?
Students were lucky.
Students were lucky back then, right? Not really. During the Vietnam War, we know they had the draft, right? So college students, they were all eligible for the draft. How does that make them lucky? Would you rather have been back then? Which brings us here. What would you have seen it like if you were back during the Vietnam War, if you were a student then? Would you have felt lucky to be in class or getting able to skip from class because of war protests, or would you have rather there been no war at all, so that way you didn't have the chance to have to go over to Vietnam, serve in the war, risk your life to fight in a conflict that you didn't really believe in, or that the public was no longer starting to believe in? Anybody?
I was just gonna ask for clarification.
Yes.
So I myself too. But in the Vietnam War, so when they were drafting people, were they drafting women too, or just men?
It was mainly just a men's draft. Women were still kind of not allowed to fight in the war, but they were going over as volunteers as nurses at this time.
But you would volunteer, you wouldn't?
Yeah, you wouldn't. Women weren't necessarily drafted this time.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
So, gentlemen, would you guys have wanted to be drafted at this time? Be forced to go fight in a fight that you don't believe in necessarily? No. Good. Can we make any connections of what was the same maybe back then as what is right now? Maybe, even if we have opposition against the war, what about our troops? How do we feel about them?
So you want protection for family and friends that are abroad. And
Good.
the country doesn't believe in the war and you feel like you're out there for no reason.
Good. What about maybe support, even though you don't believe in the fight, what about supporting your troops? You know they're going to be over there fighting, they're going to need some supplies and stuff like that, so are you just going to completely abandon them and say, okay, well, we don't believe in the war, so we're just going to stop supporting our troops? No, people are still going to have to support, even though they're against the war, they're still going to have to support the war at some point in time in order to provide for their troops and their sons and their cousins and nephews and their family members who are fighting in the war at this time. And then that's about it. Now I bring in another document. I bring in a couple pictures. I have 3 or 4 protest pictures and then a political cartoon.